Today, I want to talk about mortgages. Most likely, the biggest payment you'll ever make is buying a home. And I went back and counted that my wife and I are living actually in our sixth home, believe it or not. We didn't necessarily plan it that way, but I moved around a bit for my job, and we kind of progressed in the normal fashion from a starter home, onward from there. So between those two factors, we're now in our sixth home, and had quite a lot of experience with mortgages over the years. So it's important to understand how mortgages work and the different options. Now, you probably know that the most common mortgage type is a 30-year fixed rate. For most first-time home buyers, this is the way to go, and most of the mortgages we had were 30-year fixed. As an aside, I think our first mortgage was a variable rate mortgage when mortgage rates were very high, even higher than now, back in the late 80s. You have to be very careful with those, and I don't think there's much market for those today anymore. So I'm not going to be talking about those. Now, our last mortgage was a 15-year mortgage, and that's the first thing I want to do is walk you through the numbers comparing a 30-year fixed rate to a 15-year fixed rate. So as you can see in the template here, I'm just going to input a mortgage amount, which I've already done at $300,000, and the interest rate at 5%. And both these can be changed to whatever value you'd like. And you can see the monthly payment is calculated. So you can see the difference much lower, obviously, on a 30-year fixed rate versus the 15-year fixed rate, even at the same interest rate. So a $762 per month difference. Conversely, though, the interest paid over the life of the loan is much less. Again, as you might imagine, on a 15-year loan, it's less than half. So the biggest deterrent for most people, especially young folks just starting out, is obviously the higher monthly payment. So that would probably drive you to the 30-year fixed. But when you're going through your options, it's helpful to at least run the numbers to see if you can afford that monthly payment. The other big thing talked about with mortgages are mortgage points, or just points. Sometimes they're called discount points. And the way they work is for each point, you pay 1% of the mortgage amount in order to get a reduced interest rate. So the way it generally works is 1 point costs 1% of your mortgage and gets you a 0.25% reduction in your interest rate. 2 points cost 2% of your mortgage and get you 0.5% interest rate reduction, and 3 points cost 3% and get you 0.75% interest rate reduction. So the question is, are these points worth it? And basically, I'll give you kind of the answer right away, and then we'll go through the numbers. And I have used points in the past for some of our mortgages, and generally they are cost effective if you plan to stay in your home at least 5 years. So the longer you plan to stay in your home, more the savings will be. And at the end of the day, not only do you want to shop around for the lowest interest rate you can find, but even lowering it more than that via points, if you plan to spend at least 5 years in your home, is generally, in my experience, the right answer. So basically, let's use the same analysis here, the $300,000 mortgage at 5%. Of course, you can change that to whatever you'd like. I plugged in here that I'm going to pay to get 2 points, which would be 2% of the mortgage, or $6,000. That would lower my interest rate to 4.5%. So the new monthly payment would be $1,520 versus $1,610. So $90 per month lower. That payback, just by the way, is about 5.5 years. So that goes back to what I said earlier about staying in your home about 5 years. And if obviously the longer you stay, the more it'll pay off for you. So in this example, staying all 30 years, you would pay $247,000 in interest because of your lower rate versus the $279. So your savings $32,000 over 30 years. You paid $6,000 to get that, but you're saving $32,000. over 30 years. And again, it would take about 5.5 years to recoup that $6,000 of points. The other thing that's interesting, and I've read a little bit about this, and they don't mention anything about building your equity in your home faster because you have a lower rate. But when I run the numbers here in this scenario, because the interest rate is lower at 4.5%, you've bought that down. If you look at the ending loan balance, and I have amortizations below here on both these scenarios. So if you look at your ending loan balance, let's say you didn't pay for the points, took a $300,000 loan at 5%, or you did pay for the points to get down to 4.5%, each year you'll be building additional home equity. So that's really over and above the 5.5 year payback. It really, I think, gives you an additional reason to go ahead and do this. So you can see after 5 years, you've built an additional $2,000 in home equity. So if you went to sell the home after 5 years, you would owe $273,000 on your mortgage and not $275,000. So there's some additional home equity there that you would be building. The other thing I want to talk about was, you might say, well, instead of paying $6,000 to get a lower rate, what if I just put the $6,000 and reduce the mortgage amount, say, to $294,000? So we can run those numbers here real quick to see if it works out to be a better thing to do that. So let's continue to use the $300,000. We know at the 4.5% interest rate, the monthly payment is $1,520. Total interest paid is $247. So if I go up to the top here, just change this 300 to 294 at 5%, the rate's actually higher. So it's $1,578 versus what it was at $1,520. And the interest you're going to pay is $274 over the life of the loan versus $247 in the other scenario. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying. It's better, generally speaking, in my experience, and I think the math bears it out, it's better to pay for the points, get the lowest rate you possibly can, and that will pay dividends for you over time. Thanks for watching. Please sub up and give this video a like if you think it was helpful. Have a great day, and talk soon.